my god. You're so awesome, Lawrence Lim.
It's Lawrence Lim with the W.
Somewhere in the cosmic void, a spaceship is drifting, filled with the voice of an astronaut. He is comforting a woman who remains on Earth, promising that he will return very soon. He lists the things he will miss while on his journey, but most of all, he will miss his little sister, a blue-eyed artist who will grow up without him and surely achieve great success. Meanwhile, on Earth, in a small, nameless village in the French countryside, his sister Elsa stops to paint a large green letter F on a black astronaut statue prominently displayed at the village entrance. Elsa works as a nurse at a local retirement home and always keeps her sketchbook nearby, capturing everything that interests her. On this day, she reports to her colleagues about a patient's condition. When her friend and coworker mocks her for an awkward phrase she uses, Elsa begins explaining what she meant using a drawing. Her supervisor scolds her, but Elsa doesn't stop. Finally, the workday ends. Elsa heads home, where it is revealed that her supervisor is also her mother. Elsa greets her younger brother Vincent and hurries to the basement, which serves as her father's office. They exchange news, though as usual, there is nothing new to tell. Her father asks Elsa to stop painting on the monument to Frank, explaining that it's vandalism. He adds that the village mayor has repeatedly asked him to rein in his disobedient daughter. Elsa, however, becomes angry, blaming her brother Frank for disappearing without explanation 3 years ago. Later that evening, Elsa tells her younger brother about the times they spent with Frank. They used to talk a lot and imagine a massive spaceship coming to take them away, saying goodbye to their parents before setting off on comedic adventures far from home. Unlike Elsa, Vincent barely remembers Frank and listens to her stories with great interest. Their conversation is interrupted by their mother's voice, reminding them that it's time for Vincent to come home. Before leaving, Elsa suggests they look at the stars one last time and laments that a street light makes it impossible to see them properly. Vincent suggests smashing the light. While he works on this, Elsa suddenly hears Frank's voice. She jumps up, unsure of where it's coming from. Just then, Vincent extinguishes the streetlight and the two siblings freeze, awestruck by the overwhelming grandeur of the starry sky. The next day, Elsa resumes her routine at the retirement home. She performs her duties with care, cleaning, bathing, and dressing an elderly woman who thanks Elsa and calls her beautiful. The woman shares the recipe for her favorite dish, which she remembers vividly, though she fails to recognize her husband, Monsieur Lebon, when he visits her. Later, Elsa's friend announces that she is moving to another city with her brother, leaving Elsa deeply upset. Out of kindness, Elsa offers to drive Monsieur Lebon home. That evening, Elsa goes to a youth club. Even while dancing and having fun, she continues sketching during breaks. On her way home that night, she spots a large dog standing in the middle of the road. It looks at her car as if waiting for her. Elsa gets out and follows the dog into an alleyway, where she finds a woman lying on the ground. Checking for signs of life, Elsa discovers that the woman is alive but drunk and likely homeless, as she appears to sleep here often. Returning to her car, Elsa feels restless and doesn't want to go home. Instead, she drives to the hill where she and Vincent admired the stars. She can't stop thinking about Frank's voice. Sitting in the same spot, she suddenly hears it again. This time, the voice doesn't fade. Frank tells her that he is glad to hear her. Elsa asks where he is, and Frank explains that his spaceship veered off course. Now he is surrounded by darkness and emptiness, with no surviving crew members. The voice she hears comes through mysterious beings that surround him. They are everywhere, even in his mind. Frank fears that he is dying. The beings told him there is a way for him to return, but only Elsa can make it happen. To begin, she must find a seed that will allow them to communicate. It's nearby, under her feet. Elsa searches and soon finds a transparent capsule with a stem resembling a peculiar seed among the stones. She inserts it into her ear. Frank's voice immediately becomes clear and loud. He confesses how much he misses her, and Elsa tells him about the statue erected in his honor. The next morning, Elsa wakes up at home, feeling a liquid dripping from her ear. Panicked, she rushes to the bathroom to remove the seed, but it seems to have taken root. She pulls out a long, white, fibrous strand, and as she tries to tear it, she suddenly hears a voice telling her to stop. Thinking she imagined it, Elsa pulls more of the strand and prepares to cut it with scissors. The voice repeats the command and punishes her with a painful sound wave that strikes her eardrums. Elsa collapses to the floor, calling out to Frank. However, the voice informs her that he is currently inactive. The beings have put him to sleep due to low oxygen levels. They are around him and now in her head. Elsa pleads for them to leave her, but they declare that they need her as much as she needs them. They promise to bring her brother back if she fulfills their demands. Their main rule, she must tell no one about them. At that moment, Vincent enters the bathroom and sees that Elsa is unwell. She lies to him, brushing off his concerns, and sends him away. The voice asks Elsa to follow a path that only they can see. In return, they promise to bring Frank back. They explain that they need 5 bodies, and Elsa has 3 days to find and bring 5 people there. The beings do not reproduce, so humans need not fear a large-scale invasion. No one will ever know they are there because they remain invisible. Following the voice's commands, Elsa drives to a spot in the forest and begins walking along the path visible only to the being. To ensure she can find it again, she marks the path with paint. Elsa obediently follows every instruction, but the being suddenly asks, "What is a hostage?" Elsa realizes the creatures can easily read her thoughts. She calmly explains the meaning of the word. The being tries to apply the term to the current situation, attempting to determine who the villain is. Tired of their philosophical musings, Elsa asks the voice to be quiet. Suddenly, the voice orders her to stop, explaining that she must walk straight ahead because she has veered off course. Elsa argues that a tree grows at that specific spot, but the voice insists that the path must be exactly there. Elsa inspects the tree as the beings explain that her brother is directly behind it. Elsa returns to town and goes to a woodworking shop where her acquaintance Augustine works. He explains that the tree requires proper documentation before it can be cut down. Elsa pleads with him, insisting that it's just a tree. Augustine points her to his senior colleague Jordan, who has the authority to decide. Eventually, Elsa convinces the men to help her. They grab a saw and head into the forest with her. When they arrive, Jordan questions why they need to cut down this particular tree. Elsa claims it's part of a bet and offers him money, but Jordan refuses and begins the work. When the job is nearly finished, he asks Elsa to complete it. She takes the saw and Jordan helps her, making his romantic interest clear. Finally, the tree falls. Elsa asks the men to leave, but Augustine has already returned to the truck. Jordan starts making advances on Elsa, but she pushes him away. He tries to force himself on her, and Elsa reaches for the saw lying nearby. At that moment, Augustine reappears, shouting at Jordan. In the chaos, Elsa directs the saw toward Jordan's groin. Elsa crawls down the newly revealed path and looks back, seeing no one behind her. She returns to the spot and finds Augustine's cap. A moment later, he emerges from the forest. The voice informs her that the exchange was successful. No one will notice. However, the second body proved unsuitable and has disappeared forever. 4 bodies remain. Elsa demands to see her brother. When she insists, the voice causes her pain with a sound wave. They remind her that they now have Augustine and could take her too if she resists. Suddenly, Elsa finds herself aboard a desolate spaceship, walking its corridors. She sees her brother Frank asleep. She touches his face and his grown beard. It feels as though she is transported into a comic book she had drawn as a child. Frank's voice reminds her of the comic and how she forbade him from looking at it. However, he secretly submitted it to a youth competition where it was rejected. Now he asks how her artistic pursuits are going, adding that he will be proud of her when he returns. Time runs out and Elsa returns to reality. She and Augustine drive back to town, though Elsa cannot understand why she must be the one to decide. She asks Augustine to say that Jordan left and will not return. She also insists he smile constantly to maintain his disguise as Augustine. Later, the voice informs Elsa that only 3 days remain. The transition cannot last longer. Elsa's mother treats the scratches she got in the forest, while Elsa goes to the storeroom and finds Frank's clothes. Vincent tells her that Frank is never coming back. Curious, he asks why Elsa draws people. She doesn't answer, but instead asks him whom he would sacrifice to bring Frank back. The boy considers it and concludes it should be terminally ill people or those with no life left to live. The next day, Elsa organizes a trip to the forest for the elderly under her care. She divides them into groups and takes 3 people along her path, explaining that the walk is good for their health. The elderly grumble but follow her. The voice assures Elsa that they won't feel any pain and won't notice anything. However, when 2 of them have already passed through the tree, the last elder stumbles and falls. Elsa rushes to him, and the other group members arrive, canceling the exchange. Later, Elsa's mother scolds her for being careless, reminding her that she's responsible for taking care of the elderly and that the forest trip was dangerous. Her mother wonders what's wrong with Elsa and why she cannot seem to recover. After all, this isn't her life. She and Elsa's father have been deeply affected by Frank's loss, taking many pills to cope. Elsa's mother says she sees her son everywhere, but he's gone and they must move on. Elsa, being young and full of potential, should focus on being happy. Later, the voice explains to Elsa that they don't die but transition from one life to another, reaching the end of one path and starting a new one. They want to be human, to feel and to live in the moment. Elsa insists that living without dying isn't truly living. They just want to exist. At the lake, Augustine finds Elsa and tells her that a man on a motorcycle arrived that morning, looking for his brother, Jordan. That night, Elsa hears Frank's voice begging to be left alone. The voice tells her that time is running out and that 2 more bodies are needed. Elsa pleads with them to stop pressuring her, saying she's already trying to solve everything. Even Elsa's father notices her strange behavior, but she dismisses it as fatigue. She remembers the homeless woman, finds her, and takes her to a restaurant. Elsa explains that she sketches authentic characters for a comic and wants to make the woman one of them. The woman shares her life story, and Elsa becomes convinced she's the right choice. She leads the woman to the tree, but the woman's dog suddenly breaks free and runs away. The last person Elsa chooses is Madame Lebon's husband. She takes Madame Lebon, already inhabited by a being, to his house to suggest one final walk in the forest. While Elsa explores his home, Madame Lebon discovers her husband hanging in a noose. The being informs Elsa that Madame Lebon is now the last option. If Elsa doesn't find anyone, the being will return, and both she and Frank will suffer. Elsa begs them not to harm her brother. Unexpectedly, Elsa sees a young man walking his motorcycle along the road and realizes who he is. She offers him a ride since it's raining. He agrees, and during the ride, talks about searching for his reckless brother. He assumes Elsa and his brother were friends and asks about Jordan. To avoid his questions, Elsa turns up the music. The young man mentions that he knows Elsa is the astronaut's sister and insists that Frank couldn't have disappeared without explanation. Seeing her sketches, he praises her work. He senses her nervousness and asks how she's feeling. Then he begins talking about his dreams of becoming a chef and opening a small restaurant, even describing the name and logo he's designed. Hearing this, Elsa abruptly stops the car and orders him out, leaving him bewildered. Driving away, she sobs and begs to speak to her brother. Frank's voice greets her, and Elsa apologizes. She says that if she could, she'd live in a dream where he doesn't exist. She asks questions, but there are no more answers. With only 10 minutes left, Elsa walks the path alone, just as the heroine in her comic once did. The drawn girl sits in a chair beside her brother, and together they gaze at a massive planet ahead. Sometime later, Elsa drives with the homeless woman's dog in her car. They arrive at the coast where they run and play along the shore. Elsa eventually stands still, gazing out at the sea. The film leaves a sense of confusion and disappointment. Despite the director's attempts to immerse the viewer in philosophical depth, it comes across as a simplified parable about letting go. However, the creators did pose one critical question quite directly. How do we determine the value of human life? And can it truly be weighed to decide who matters more to the world?
I heard a rumor through the grapevine so bold. Lawrence Lim got a million stories untold. From green jokes, conspiracies, and edits with flair. You gotta follow him, baby, if you dare. Your feed feels empty without his magic touch. You got the blues and the laughs that you crave so much. With a click and a follow, you'll find some relief. Lawrence Lim, social media, a digital belief. Click, subscribe, don't miss a trick now, hey. Leave your worries and come on, click today. Lawrence Lim's got the content right in line. Follow him now.